Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us as usual. So for today, we are joined by Ms. Tanya Walker, who is a commercial litigator. So Tanya, can you please introduce yourself and feel free to say whatever you want. And as always, these sessions are recorded. So if you're not watching it live, then you'll be watching it on our YouTube channel. So good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to share my experiences with you. So I attended McMaster University. I have a degree in business, Honours Bachelor of Commerce. I obtained that in 2002. And then I went straight on to Osgoode. I graduated in 2005, and I was called to the bar in 2006. I practiced at two Bay Street firms before I opened Walker Law 11 years ago, and I've been practicing for 15 years. Sorry, you're on mute.
I said that's a ton of experience, and I'm really happy to hear U of T. That is where I go to school as well. So go U of
No,
T. Law.
McMaster.
But I still heard you say U of T. So
No, I went Osgoode and McMaster. I'm Toronto. I love Toronto, but I'm Osgoode and McMaster.
I was gonna make okay. Never mind. Then I don't like you, Tanya. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry about the really sunny lighting. I work in an outdoor office, so it's just kind of hitting me perfectly right now. Yeah. So my first question for you is, could you please describe what commercial litigation is for myself and our viewers? Because although I've met lots of lawyers, I've never heard this term specifically used. So I was just wondering, what is a commercial litigator and what do they do?
Commercial litigation. So I'm a trial lawyer, and we represent clients that are involved in financial disputes. So when there's really fights over money, clients call us. So we specialize in property, contract, and employment law, and we represent small or medium-sized businesses and Fortune 500, such as PayPal. So whenever there's a financial dispute, then it usually lands in our laps, and we try our hardest to settle the matter. And if we aren't able to settle it, then we go to court. So I've argued in Superior Court, the Court of Appeal, various tribunals, and that's what a commercial litigator does: commerce, money, and litigation.
Okay, perfect. A question I had for you is these are just general things to start off, but can you describe what type of courses you took in university and what your experience was like there in your undergrad?
Sure. So when I attended McMaster University, as I mentioned, my degree was in commerce, so it was business degree. And I just focused on what I kind of liked there. I've always liked computers. I had a computer when I was around 3 years old, and I liked programming. So I just focused on internet. Yeah, yeah. And my dad is very good. My dad is very good at looking at strengths and working with our strengths, my sister and I. So he saw that my cousins had a computer and I would like to program. And he said, and I was just addicted to the computer, and I took out books from the library on programming. So he said, okay, we'll get you a computer. And then I've always just been interested in computers. So when I attended McMaster, I focused on information technology, but I also had a strategy because I knew at a very young age, probably about 5 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer. And at that time, I don't know if it's the same now, but when you apply to law school, you also need a reference letter from people or a professor. So I thought to myself, you know what, if I like information technology or computers, maybe I should just focus on taking those classes so I can build relationships with those professors, because it's the same professor kind of teaching the same classes, similar classes. And so that's what I did. And I also minored in economics. So I thought economics was quite interesting. So that's my focus was, I minored in economics, specialized in information technology with an Honours Bachelor of Commerce degree.
Wow, that's a very unique experience. Most of the lawyers we have don't have any computer or economic or these types of experiences going for them. So that's really cool that you had such a different undergrad, but you still ended up in the same field of law. And you said you knew since you were 5?
Around 5 years old, but the reason why I ended up with a business degree is my parents are immigrants from Jamaica. I was born in Toronto, and my father looked at my strengths and what I liked when I was around 12 years old, or 14, when you really start grade 9. And he said, Tanya, we can't support you forever, right? And so we really need to turn your mind to what do you want to do when you're older, because you've been talking about all this lawyer stuff for all these years, but in a few years from now, you may not get in, you may change your mind, and we want you to obtain a degree that will enable you to work if you do not get in or you change your mind. And then I thought to myself, well, business probably, and he said, your options are based on your strengths. This is what I think. Social work, because I'm very extroverted. Um, that if, engineering, computer engineering, or business. That's what he's like. Those are the three things that I think you need to focus on. And in high school, you have to like at a point in time, you have to focus on courses towards your goals in terms of university. So because I always had an understanding before I even started high school that some other degrees were not options for me, that I said, okay, well, let me focus on the business stream. And I took business courses and computer classes, but I always thought of that as a backup, or just, it's good to know how a business works, how it runs. So that even if I end up a partner in a firm or end up owning my own firm, I'll have, built the foundation to understand how it kind of works in a business.
Nice. So I have a question for you that it's not a typical question we ask, but I'm just curious because you've had such a different set of life experiences. Is there a
Mhm.
time in which, I'm just thinking how to phrase this, in which you faced adversity in your law career and how you overcame that? Because I think it'd be beneficial for the students to hear from someone of your perspective.
Yes, I mean, I deal with it quite a bit. I mean, even at last year, I had to attend court personally. They required our physical attendance in court. So I arrived, and there's like these COVID papers you have to fill out and everything. And we're not at that point in time, we were not required to wear our robes. I think they just implemented that maybe like a week or two ago. They said during COVID we could just wear like our business suit, business attire. So I show up to the courthouse, and then I proceed to sign the form, and the court staff actually says to me, "So which courtroom are you assigned to?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then they're like, "Which judge are you working for?" And I'm like, "Oh, they think I'm admin. Like they think I'm administrative stuff." Like I had my big briefcase that rolls on the floor. I was wearing a suit. I was dressed, professionally, but they just looked at me and assumed that I was admin, like working as, doing administrative work. And so I kind of just chuckled to myself. I said, "Oh, I'm a lawyer." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And then the junior lawyer that was working with me on this matter, who is a white guy, showed up and after me, and I explained to him what happened. He's like, "That's strange. They just assumed that I was a lawyer." So I was just like, I just kind of chuckled. I'm like, whatever, but that happens a lot. And so I don't know if it's really adversity, but it's kind of like, it kind of is a ding, because I've been doing this for 15 years, and times have changed. We've had leaders like Obama, and they were both lawyers, but people just sometimes automatically assume that I'm not. I don't do what I do, right? And so the way I kind of get around it is I just kind of tell myself, maybe the reason why people think that way is because they don't see enough people that kind of look like me in the positions that I'm in the position that I am in. So if you don't see enough people that kind of look like me, you just might not gravitate or automatically assume that I do what I do. But even like you get some microaggressions sometimes, having people say, you speak so well, you present so well, you're so polished, you're so well spoken.
Yeah.
And I kind of smile about it, but I think sometimes that the reason why it's said to me is because there's not the expectation that I will speak well, or there's just not these conclusions in people's minds. So I, sometimes it does bother me. I'm human, but I also think to myself, just doing what I do, being who I am, that helps to create change. And maybe the next time a person who is a Black woman or a minority lawyer shows up, there might not be the automatic conclusion that this person's here to assist the court as opposed to making representations before the court.
I would classify that as diversity, but I think it's admirable to have more people of color, more people of Jamaican descent, more women in careers like these, because we need that representation in the field. Especially since like kids are growing up right now, if they're going to be looking at this field and deciding what career they want to take, they want to see someone like them represented. Speaking of kids,
And it's true. That's how I decided to become a lawyer.
oh,
That's how I decided to become a lawyer, because I watched the Cosby Show and that Claire Huxtable. Sorry, did I freeze?
yeah, but you're better
Can you
now.
hear me?
Sorry, yeah, you were just talking about
Okay.
why you
Yeah,
decided to become a lawyer.
well, I saw Claire Huxtable from the Cosby Show, and Claire Huxtable was a Black woman, and because I saw her on that show when I was little. I thought, oh, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to be her. So, and I don't know if it wasn't for seeing someone that I thought looked like I could look like when I'm grown up. I don't know if I necessarily would have pursued this route because I don't have any other lawyers in my family.
Wow.
Oh, actually, older lawyer. I have a younger lawyers now, but people
Yeah.
who are ahead of me.
But seeing that on TV really inspired you to become a lawyer.
Yes.
That's really cool. For me, seeing Kareena Kapoor in Bollywood movies made me want to be in a Bollywood movie, but sadly that hasn't happened for me. So here I am doing law. But
You got time, it may happen.
no, actually, yes, maybe it could.
Yeah.
A question I have for you is, what would you say is the hardest part about being a commercial litigator? Like the difficult tasks that you would have to do, and how do you accomplish these things? Is my internet connection unstable?
It froze for a minute. I just heard the heart. I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes,
Perfect.
I can.
I guess my internet connection just went for a second and came back.
Okay.
So, anyways, the question that I was asking is, what would you say is the hardest part of your job? I know some of the other lawyers, when they were talking about being family law, for them, it was dealing with emotional connections because it was very personable and related, and they had to overcome that and make sure that they were partisan and not picking one side and not being biased. So, I wanted to know, what are the difficulties of being a commercial litigator specifically?
I think the hardest part of my job is just balancing all the different hats that I wear because I started the firm 11 years ago. There's almost 10 people in the firm. So in addition to practicing like the litigation that I actually practice is quite complex. Like we delegate based on complexity. So more complicated commercial matters like go to me. And so I'm focused on that. Plus I also supervise a number of lawyers, usually an articling student, a paralegal, clerk, billings clerk. So it's a lot of hats that I wear. And then having to generate business and rainmake, juggling all these things at the same time. I think that's the challenge sometimes of being a commercial litigator. But in terms of the job itself, it's hard for me to say because I really love what I do, right? And I do
I
recognize
can
that
tell.
sometimes that when if you there are things you might like and things you may not like as much, but it doesn't mean that it's so difficult. It's just that's life. So I don't really find that there's anything that's really doing it for 15 years. I don't really find that there's anything I really don't like. I think there are challenges, and I think in life there will always be challenges, and it's up to us to overcome them. But that's the only thing I could say is in private practice, sometimes it is challenging to supervise people, not worry about, think about generating business and also practice really complex litigation.
That makes sense, especially since you own the firm.
Yes.
Yeah. And speaking of your firm, is there a reason that you decided to start your own instead of just becoming a practicing lawyer at an established law firm? Because obviously, starting your own is much harder.
It wasn't that hard for me. And the reason why is because I started after practicing at other firms. So I had built a little bit of a reputation and a little bit of a clientele. And then when I decided to open the firm, 99% of the clients followed me. The reason why the reason why I decided to open the firm is that I was just treated so poorly by my previous firm. I had to deal with racism and I had to deal with discrimination based on gender. And I just thought to myself, I'm a junior lawyer. It is so hard, like just to be a junior. You're learning so much. It's a very steep learning curve that I just need to focus on doing a good job and being a good lawyer. And I am not going to apologize for where my parents came from, for what I look like or my gender. I have no apologies at all whatsoever. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of being an immigrant, a child of immigrant parents. I'm proud of being from a working class background. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be Black. And let's just move on and let me focus on the job. So that's why I really decided to open. And my mother was always saying to me, Tanya, you're bringing in files, you're generating business, you're out networking, you play golf, you do all these
You
things
play golf,
that
the
help.
important
Well, I was raised in Ajax, so driving ranges weren't too far away. But I was
Wait,
always one
Ajax?
originally from Ajax. Yeah, I'm
That's
in
where
Toronto.
I live.
Yes, I
Wow.
16 years in Ajax. My parents are still there, so I was doing all these things to be as well rounded as one could be considered in law,
Mhm.
and still not be treated with well. And my mother was like, I think you just should open your own firm. Like, what is there to gain being in a firm where you're stressed out all the time? So that's why I decided to open it. And there's no turning back. I opened it with a loan from my father for $5,000 and a part-time assistant. And 11 years from now, we have almost 10 people in the firm. And we've received many awards, been recognized, and I am very grateful for all the opportunities that we've been provided.
No, it sounds like a really great accomplishment that you were able to do this on your own and get out of such a, well, with a loan and with some help, but it was you who established this firm. I think
Right.
that's a
I wouldn't take the credit though. I had a lot of support. My mentors, parents. I had so much support. Like, I sound like my dad when he says no man is an island or woman, I guess. But you can. I didn't do it alone. I kind of spearheaded it, but I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have support from so many people.
Speaking of support, you've mentioned that you have about 10 employees in the firm now. So, how do you select your employees? Because I would imagine that you get a lot of interviews and a lot of applicants for this. So, is there like a specific trait or quality in a person that you're like, yeah, I want you on my team? Because we're going to be starting to apply to law schools and law jobs. And I just think it'd be beneficial for the viewers and myself to know what people like you look for.
Um, I look for a few things. What's an asset is if the person has had some work experience, because you're in litigation, you're dealing with judges, you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with each other. And so it's great if you've had some experience working with other people. So that's very important. Um, Everybody just comes from a unique background. What I also am looking for is some kind of indication about uh, loyalty and patience, because we live in a world that's really instant gratification. You get things right away, and you can be successful right away, but usually it requires a lot of time and work and discipline. So I'm looking for something in that resume that kind of stands out to me that way, and I don't have a magical answer for that. And
Yeah.
also loyalty, because we're in a profession where um, you can make so much in such a short period of time. And so there might be, someone might jump from firm to firm to firm to firm because they're trying to make as much as they can. They can do that. That's their choice. But the problem is, when we hire people in our firm, I put a lot of resources into training that person into becoming a good lawyer, right? So when someone articles, it's not like I just have this person drafting memos for a year. They go to court. I attend court too. I don't bill the client. I want to help develop, like, that process of articling is, I take it very seriously into helping develop that person into a good lawyer. So it's you write off a lot of time so that person can learn, and we're not even really concerned about billable time when that person is articling or even in their junior years, because you have to learn what you're doing first before you can worry about that. So I think I look at people if they are in leadership positions. So if you are um, the president of this, vice president of that, not just a member, because members can just show up, but
Mhm.
you've had some position of responsibility, because that says a lot about you. It says that you could be a leader. It says that you want to be responsible. And if you are a president, vice president or something, then you probably can handle that kind of pressure, because that comes with a little bit of pressure.
Okay. Thank you. That's really useful advice. I'm especially for me because I was thinking about this. So to add on to something that you said, you were talking about lawyers who jump firm to firm, essentially trying to make the most money. If there's a lawyer who's doing that and they came to you asking to be in your firm, does that make them less desirable as a candidate? I'm just curious about this.
It depends on what their future goals are. Like if someone wants to be a member of our firm just for, and I mean, it kind of indicates to me that they want to be a member of our firm for just maybe a year or so, so they can move on to the
Yeah,
next
okay.
firm. They're not going to be employed with our firm. I wouldn't think about extending an offer because we want someone there. We want people there for the long term, the long haul. We don't want to put resources into somebody for them to pad their resume to then move on to the other firm. Right. So we can't control what people do. And I understand why people do that because now law school is so expensive.
Yeah.
People may take on a lot of debt. Like I had $30,000 worth of debt and I thought it was the end of the world. So I can imagine, some people are graduating with 6 figures of debt. So I totally understand. But we have to make a decision that's best for the business, best for the firm, and best for our clients. And it doesn't always sit well with clients if you're working on a really complicated matter and lawyer to lawyer to lawyer to lawyer has worked on it. You need some continuity. So that may work for other places, but with a small firm like ours with limited resources, it doesn't work for us.
That makes perfect sense. Could you describe what a day-to-day or a typical day, as typicals can be, is like in your life at your firm in terms of responsibilities, tasks, things that you would do?
It kind of varies depending on the day. So I can say like I get up very early. I'm a morning person.
Nice.
I'm usually up between 5 to 6. I start work usually around 7. And I try not to schedule any meetings in the morning. If it's court, I can't help it. Like that's at 10 o'clock. But usually in the morning, I'm proofreading documents, spin class, I'll do running, something because you're sitting around with your health to exercise. So I try to do that as well.
Mhm.
And then I eat dinner with the family and I'm back on my laptop catching up with emails. Again.
The internet is just not cooperating today. Neither is the sun. That's okay. Hey, Tanya, can you hear me?
Did I freeze?
Go Zoom. Hey, Tanya, can
Sorry,
you
you're
hear
back. I
me?
can hear you now.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
I can.
I heard your response, but would you mind just saying it again just for the viewers because it might have gone cut off? The last thing I heard was spin class and running.
Oh yeah. So at the end of the day, I usually try to exercise. I think exercise is very important and just helps you be a healthier person. I find I think better when I exercise as well. So I usually, at the end of the day, I usually try to participate in like in a spin class or a boot camp spin class or just run on the treadmill. So I think that's just, and then I'll eat dinner with my family. I'm back on my laptop or computer, and I'll catch up with emails, an hour or two into the night. So the days are quite long. They usually are, 10 to 12 hours a day. It could be up to 16 if I'm in court.
Wow.
And
But I
I,
agree with the exercising. It's also like a mental health break.
yes, it is. It's like my me time.
Well, Tanya, we sound like we would be best friends outside of this. All the same things in common. I wanted to talk to you about court actually, because a lot of lawyers say, oh, I go to court, but what does that mean? Like, what is the procedure for going to court and how exactly do the details work of when you enter the courtroom and things you can say and you can't say? Like, I know, for example, when you're in parliament and you're the house, you have to address each person as honorable so-and-so. You can't say names. Are there rules like that in court?
Kind of. I mean, when you go to court, you usually have to start a court process. So somebody usually for me, somebody has to sue somebody, right? Because you need a court file number, so you need usually something filed in court to open up the court file. When I attend court, if I physically attend court, there's usually a room for us to change into our robes. You shouldn't change into your robes inside the courtroom. You should change into a different room, like even if it's in the washroom. You attend early enough so you can sign in. There's usually a sign-in sheet, and you give it to the registrar so they can record who's there from that, who's not there. When you sign in, you also have to say, if you're arguing just something called a motion, which is just you're making a request to a judge for an order before you actually go to trial, you have to indicate whether it's contested, not contested, and how long you'll be so they can organize everybody, because there might be 15 or 20 cases before the judge. Before you attend court, you usually have to confirm 3 days before, at least 3 days before, that your matter is going to proceed, so then they can assign it to the judge and the judge can read your materials. When you argue before the judge, usually the person who's making the request goes first. You don't address each other, you address the judge. So that's something you don't do. Like I wouldn't say, you're not telling me the truth. You would say, you speak to the judge, you don't really speak to each other. You prepare court orders for the judge to sign in advance. And you usually would have the other side agree, like if it goes this way, this is the court order. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But so what we did, I like efficiency, and because I like technology, what we did a few years ago is we bought a portable printer.
That is so cool.
So if we go to court and the judge makes an order, I'll give to the judge, here's the order I typed out for you. And if the judge has any comments or wants it to be edited, I'll say, can you give me about 5 minutes? I have my laptop here, I have my portable printer. I can just print it out right away.
That is so useful.
Usually they're like, that's so cool. So then they let me, it's quiet. My husband's an IT person, so he found one that's very quiet and light. And so it's not heavy to carry around to the courthouse. And so I'll reprint it, and then the judge can sign it. And then the court order doesn't really officially exist until it's entered into the court computer system. So it's our responsibility to bring it to that desk, which is maybe on a different floor, a different area of the courthouse, with a judge's signature on it, and then they officially enter it into the court system, and that's when it's actually like a real court order. So that's kind of how it works. And yeah, the only thing I would say is you just don't address each other. You address the judge, and you don't cut each other off, and you have a lot of respect, and you don't really object unless there's really a reason to object. It's not like TV. Like I find it kind of cool to watch on TV, but it's not really like that. If you don't agree with what they say, you might be able to reply, and you just wait your turn.
Yeah, thank you for clearing up those misconceptions, because I feel like a lot of lawyers say we go to court, but no one knows the actual details of what that is. And if you think details, you think back to like Law and Order, where they're like, I object because that's a lie, because whatever, which is not what real life is like. In terms of court orders, you just mentioned that you have to get the co-counsel to agree with that. But what if the co-counsel is being really stubborn or just not seeing eye to eye? Do you have any best practices on how to handle that?
That's why I bought the printer, because that's why I purchased the printer, because normally if you don't have the court order prepared, the judge makes the order, the judge might write it out by hand, this is what I order, and then you're supposed to go back to your desk and type it out and get an agreement with the other side. If the other side doesn't agree, then you might have to schedule an appointment to go back before the court, before the judge, to get the order okayed.
Wow.
To me, that's not efficient. Easiest thing, print the order, bring it to court. Judge says, if they don't agree, they don't respond to you, that's okay, because it's ultimately the judge makes a decision. Judges want something to be tweaked, tweak it, print it, let the judge sign it, so then you can get it entered into the court system. So it's, the thing is, like, in ordering a business, it's not just, I opened a law firm. I wanted to improve two things. One thing is how people are treated who work in the firm, where everybody in our firm is treated with respect. Like if the clients are disrespectful, I've made clients apologize to staff, right? So everybody's treated with respect, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race. And the second thing is also look at the system that we have and what can we do to make it a little bit more efficient.
I really appreciate the rule that you have for respect, especially like as a lawyer, that if anything happens, the clients do apologize. I think that's a great rule that you input. And if I'm going to take anything from our conversation, it's that I need to buy a portable printer. As every other lawyer, because that is such a cool purchase.
It's a
So
very good purchase.
yeah. So is your income, like your salary or employees at your company, are your salaries based on whether or not you win cases or lose cases?
No,
So how
because
does
I mean,
salary work?
our salary is based on what is in the market, and just a little, like, our expectations are so high, so we can't provide a salary that's just what every small firm provides, right? So our salary, does the salary, and I do believe in pay compensation, like fair compensation.
Yeah.
And so because we have such high standards and we represent some of the big clients like PayPal, um, then our employees are paid based on salary, which is a little bit higher than the market. And then we look at bonuses as well, but we can't just pay based on whether you win or lose, because sometimes there's an appeal. Sometimes it's, so it's not just because you lose in court doesn't necessarily mean it was your fault. You could have lost in court because the facts are just not in your favor. You could have lost in court because there could be an error in the law or the facts, and your client decides to appeal or not appeal because it's costly to appeal. So I don't believe that would be fair.
Okay, that makes sense. So we're nearing the end of our session, Tanya. And my last question for you is, do you just have anything you want to say? Any advice, any comments you perhaps didn't get to make for all of our viewers who are going to watch this?
Well, I mean, the advice that I would give to the next generation is that you guys have so much more tools available to you to build relationships. When I was in law school, you really just had, or even when I was starting to practice, you had certain things like the golf, or like doing things to network that way. But you can connect with people on social media. You can build relationships that way. And it's important to be patient, though, because we have the insta gratification, and so you have to. I think it's important to keep in mind that some things take some time. Um, Keep your drive up, keep strong interpersonal skills, and it's important to have confidence, but there's a boundary between confidence and arrogance or being
Yeah.
aggressive. So I think that's important to know.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I really enjoyed our conversation. I thought it was super easygoing and informative. And again, I'm sorry about just the sun just on me and the bad Wi-Fi, but thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate it. And I know all of our viewers do too.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a good night. Thank you.
Same to you. Thank you. Bye.
And bye to all our viewers.